Chicago PD explores trauma. And in this live, I'm going to explain to you why I believe that Chicago PD helps heal trauma. And in order to explain this, I have to get into one of the storylines. So it's season 2, the end of season 2 actually. And there's this girl, she's called Nadia, and she finally learned how to get out of addiction. So I can't say she beat the system, but she beat her addiction. And she had to fight for it. She had to fight for it really hard. And in the show, you can actually see how she's been taken to the clinic and she can't keep up with it. So she has to go back in order to detox once more. And well, here's the thing. She manages to beat it. And well, she comes into a situation where she has to use in order to get a case solved. We're talking about Chicago PD after all, which is about um, busting people who sell drugs, who do all sorts of stuff that you don't want to happen to yourself or those you love. And so Nadia used to be a hooker, and like I said, she was addicted, and she managed to finally get away from all the stuff. And she was embraced by Aaron, and Aaron is a detective, but not only is she a detective. From the beginning of the series, we can see how she and Sergeant Hank Voight have this very special bond. And during the series, we get to see why. So basically, she's been sort of raised by Sergeant Voight from the age of 15. And well, he saved her from a life of going downhill. So because of him, she's not using anymore, and she's got a good job, and you know, she's forever indebted to him. But moreover, she wants to help others too. You know, that's one of the purposes she's found in life. When she saw Nadia, it was like, hey, I can help her like I was saved back then. Then something happens and Nadia gets killed. And well, I just read a little bit on the internet, and I know I'm not the only one. All of us, we, hi Anna, all of us were really distraught by the fact that Nadia got killed. So hang on. Um, for those who want to join, uh, which you can do with or without the camera, you're welcome. Um, so here's the thing. When Nadia no longer lives, you can actually see how Aaron is like really going downhill all the time, more and more and more and more. It's she starts drinking again. She comes back in contact with her mom, and her mom introduces her back to an old boyfriend. And well, it was actually not even a boyfriend, it was someone who was bullying her. He's into the party life and gets Aaron back into the party life because mom basically never left it. And of course, you can see what happens. She goes downhill too, up to a point that she actually says, "I don't want to be part of the police force anymore." And so, and this is really touching. Hank Voight goes to find her, goes to the bar where her mom is behind the bar. She's sitting there all alone, drowning her sorrows. And so, and he addresses her. He addresses her as a friend. He addresses her as her dad. And then he finally ends up addressing her as her boss. Like, okay, now you need to get cleaned up. Now you're coming with me. But at that moment, she gives him her badge, and you can see how this really hurts him. And of course, it's not over by then. So going back to what we are witnessing, it's a whole series of events. First, we get to know Nadia. Of course, we get to know Erin. We get to know the storyline behind her and Sergeant Hank Voigt taking her in as if she was one of his own. And then, boom, Nadia, who is working really hard to make it and become a detective too, is taken out of the series. And so, one for depending on what you have experienced in life, and that's a shame that Joe can't make it right now, because Joe and I were talking about this earlier today. Joe actually experienced what it was like to have a family member being um, raped and beaten to death. So the good thing is, in Chicago PD, the perpetrator gets hunted down and gets life in prison. And yeah, in real life, that's a little bit harder. As a result, the next trauma starts. So the traumatic event basically is Nadia dying. And then we see how this rolls over in Erin starting to drink. Basically getting back to the old habits. And I believe personally that it's so important that it's being shown what can happen if we do not know how to deal with traumatic events. And of course, as a result from that one, we see the next event happening, which is she deeply disappoints the one who has tried to be there for her when she was growing up, and also was for her growing up. Like the training wheels don't come off, or only come off when you're ready. So, and what you can see is the influence from one on the other at the moment that something like that happens. And I have to say that's really profound. So, in the title, I'm talking about 3 reasons why Chicago PD helps trauma. And there are a number of things which really hit home. So one of the things you constantly see, especially during the first episode, when Nadia is no longer there, are the flashbacks. So we see what happens, and they are combined with the reminders. And that's, of course, what we have to deal with. When we lose someone we have loved dearly, or someone we have been close with, that's what's going to happen. We will get reminders. And how do we deal with those reminders? Do we just take them off, throw them away? Do we hold them dear? And it doesn't have to be an unexpected death. I mean, like when my mom passed away, I knew that it wouldn't be long. I didn't know how long it would be, because she didn't die like with a diagnosis or anything. But I did see her decline. And of course, my mom was of age. So I knew she was going to be out of my life one day. But when it was that time, and although I had been, I had been living intensely with her, I wanted to make sure that if she wouldn't be there anymore, that I would still hold dear those memories with her. So every time I would leave, I would say, I love you, I would kiss her on the head, you know, all those little things that we can do to tell other people that we love them. And actually, we shared a very nice meal the last day that we ate together. So that was a very, very good one, very good memory. But other than that, you know, I saw pictures, I got flashbacks about how the time with her was in the end. And I have to say, that wasn't easy. It wasn't easy at all. But imagine this, and now we get to trauma, real trauma. So I'm not going to say that the death of my mom wasn't traumatic, especially since she was becoming, like we called it, Jekyll and Hyde. So she could be the sweetest mom, like she always had been, and the down to earth version, which was totally cool. But my mom was also, she was so frustrated with losing control that she would lash out at me. So she didn't literally hit me, but she would threaten me and she would say things, really mean things. And it took me a while to get over it, especially because I couldn't really talk about it with other people because at first they didn't believe me. So getting back to the flashback and reminders, especially when loss is so unexpectedly, that's hard. And then when you start to doubt yourself, could I have done something? Well, that's when it gets really bad. So a lot of people who um, who actually have PTSD, you can basically recognize it by the fact that they have panic attacks, they have flashbacks, they might only sleep like 3 hours a day, 3 hours a night. So those are all these little things which are telling you like, oh, this isn't going the way it should. And that's one of the reasons why I actually have this show, which is for the people who are experiencing trauma, but also, and not just trauma, it's for the people who need to get a voice. And usually, yes, that is linked to trauma one way or another, but also for the people who can support them. And if you know certain people, you have experienced certain things, then I would like you to watch this and give some comments so I can get into it and also share it with other people. So you can see how she walks in the house and she, you know, there are pictures here and there's other stuff there. It's about cleaning up the desk. And of course that's always one of the hardest things. And well, the last year my brother, my sister, and I have been busy cleaning up the house, which belonged to my mom. Well, to my mom and my dad, but my dad passed away 10 years ago. And about 2 months ago, it was actually sold, and that felt good. But I have to say, there's a bunch of stuff here now lying around, um, cluttering up the whole place. And that's the thing. When do you let go, and when you do you not let go? So then there's this other thing, and I believe this is so immensely important in the whole thing. And yes, Anna says she lost the friendship between the characters, and that's so true. And um, saying so, I'm going to get into another thing first. So I told you that um, Aaron, a detective, uh, is the one who's introduced, and she's like this daughter to Sergeant Hank Voight, who basically rescued her when she was 15 years old. And you can see that he's really fond of her. She's sort of his family, not sort of his family. For him, she is his family. And later, when she leaves the show, you can actually see how it really hurts him. And it's a small team what they have, and they work closely together. So there's a deep connection between all of the characters, and each character has its own personality, has its own role in the show too. And basically that's of course what it is like when you work together with other people, because in the end, we usually spend more time with our colleagues than we do with our loved ones at home. I mean, most of us work like 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. Some do more, some do less. Um, but that means that during that time, you are working with that same partner. And of course, in this show, um, it's like they have to work on the hard cases. I mean, there's a reason why I talked about 3 reasons why Chicago PD helps with trauma. And um, Chicago PD goes into those things we do not want to think about. So Anna says, and that's correct. She says, I like the fact the show doesn't have sexual scenes. Well, they hardly have any sexual scenes. It's not like they don't have them at all. But it's more like you see them going into bed and you see them coming out of bed, waking up, together, all that stuff. And of course, you see how the romance starts between them and how the tension is there. And she says in Brazil, all of the shows have a lot of sexual scenes, and which isn't the case in Chicago PD. And yeah, it's true. In the Netherlands, especially back in the day, well, I think it's still so now. There's a lot of nudity as well, and and I think that's a good thing of these shows of One Chicago, and One Chicago is not just Chicago PD, but also Chicago Fire and Chicago Med, and then of course there's the Special Victims Unit, which is in New York. So it's about the hey Mary, do you want to join? That would be nice. We're talking about One Chicago and how that helps with trauma, and it was actually something Joe and I were talking about. So we already previously did a video about One Chicago and how it helps heal trauma. But we wanted to do a little bit more in depth, bit better. And I meet Mary, meet Anna. And well, in this case, we were going to talk about it because there are some scenes which really remind Joe of what has happened to her and to her sister. And then her son actually got a reaction on his medication, so now she has to go to the hospital, which is not much fun. So I don't know if she's going to join. I don't know what's happening lately, actually. So going back to Aaron and this feeling of family. So we see, of course, the special bond between Sergeant Hank Voigt and Detective Aaron, and then Nadia comes in. At first, she's sort of saved, like she's the hooker who is an addict, and then later she goes to a rehab clinic, and I love this. Here, the hugs go over. Everyone is giving one another hugs. That's cool. Yeah, I love that. I love that in this show too. And well, so Erin tries to do the same thing, what she has been taught, basically by Sergeant Hank Voigt for Nadia, and it's cool. It's cool to see how she actually. It starts with picking up the phone, and then the other sergeant behind the desk is like, okay, is that all that you're good for? And then she shows like, yeah, but I want to do more. And then the one who's always like grumpy, that's the sergeant who's going to help her out. And that's so cool to actually witness that the one who's always like, now is all in favor of her and is helping her pass the exams and all that stuff. Well, Anna, I don't know about that, but so Anna is asking about what's happening right now on the Chicago PD, and I don't know. It's also not what I want to get into, not today, anyway, because I'm basically trying to explain the how they get us to experience all these events by, you know, the little looks, the little things which are being said or not being said. So one of the things which really struck me, and that's what I talked to Joe about, was when the perpetrator actually enters the police station. um, it looks like he's got it in for Aaron, because Aaron reminds us of his mother, height, color of hair, you know, all that stuff. And then he spots Nadia, and he, oh, you used to watch New York PD. Well, it doesn't matter if you know Chicago PD or not. This is about how um, shows can help you um, experience, or better said, get to deal with trauma. So that's basically what we are talking about. Um, this is the thing, especially when I'm on my own and I'm reading all the comments. It's like, okay, one moment I'm talking about this, and the next time I'm talking about that, and then I need to get back at what I was talking about. Oh, never mind. That's why we are live now, and later it gets edited. I'm not a fan of editing, but you know, and I do like the interaction. Let's be honest about it. Okay, so um, going back to the story of Nadia and the little thing. So she's standing near this. I think she's standing near a vending machine, and there comes the perpetrator, and he looks at her, and she gets all these chills. And I love the way that they get us to see that something is going on, whether it's with the music or just with a look or whatever. And then when she returns to the desk, Voight is looking at her, and Voight notices that she's like, something is off. And he registers it, and then he goes back to normal day-to-day life. And I think that's very significant what he did, because you can see that he notices it. But then next he well, I won't say he dismisses it. He probably has it stored in his mind for when it comes in handy, or when he needs to remember. This is the thing. Do we as people, as surroundings, actually pick up on those little signals? Okay, so guilt on Aaron's part, which leads to her getting back into old habits. And that's the other thing I wanted to talk about. Um, when we deal with trauma, we usually don't, first of all, we don't want to be reminded of what happened. So that's why I talked about the flashbacks and about the reminders. Um, there can be a lot of emotional guilt involved. I remember that the first 2 days I felt very guilty, because I was supposed to be there that weekend and visit my mom, and I didn't. And there were a bunch of reasons why I didn't. And, you know, in retrospect, it was good that I wasn't there, because if I would have been there and I would have found her on the floor, I would have called the paramedics, I would have called the doctors, and I would have made a scene. And my mom didn't want to go to the hospital. She wanted to die at home, which in the end happened. So, and she was laying on her side really peacefully, curled up like a fetus, with a cushion, a pillow under her head. So she probably died in peace. She hardly made any sound. We had cameras on, and that was another thing. She was in an angle that we couldn't see her. So some of you may have heard this story already, some of you may have not. But guilt was there for certain, of course, the first few days, especially because that day that she was lying on the floor, I was so busy that day, but I really, really, really wanted. I was like, I need to go see her, but I'm so busy and I don't have the time. And if I go there and there's curfew now and she wants to eat, but all the restaurants are closed, then how in the world am I going to help her out? And apart from that, even if even if she doesn't want to eat and I would go there and she's all grumpy because I've woken her up, yeah, that's going to be a problem. So, against better judgment, I decided not to go. Also, because my brother didn't hear anything abnormal on the camera and he didn't see her. So, he assumed she was lying in bed um, because of how the pillows were situated under the bedspread, which was, by the way, something if you would have known how she had a routine, you would have known, like, oh, yeah, that's something that my mom would do. What was weird, though, was that she wasn't capable of really leaving everything neatly behind, and that's what she had done, and that's particular. So, Mary Anna is not in Movement Makers. She's a Chicago PD fan, and as such, she knows Joe. And since I help out Joe every once in a while, when she is dealing with her own trauma and traumatic events, I step in. So that's how she knows me, basically. And of course, she knows me through Joe because Joe and I do the show together every Wednesday. Although it seems that lately I am doing it on my own. But yeah, show must go on. So, um, hey, Mary. So good to see you. Oh, wow.
It's a pleasure.
There's interesting back today.
I've been missing. The holiday was hectic here.
Yeah, I bet it was. I bet it was. So, have you been able to follow anything what I was talking about? Or do I need to repeat it for you?
No, some of them. And that's why I told you that I didn't know much about Chicago PD.
Yeah. Well, this is not so much about knowing Chicago PD. What I'm trying to get across is Chicago PD is actually very good, and that is for the whole Move Entertainment things in showing how how people interact with one another, how trauma starts to exist, all that stuff. And
Okay.
and when I started watching One Chicago and specifically Chicago Fire, for me what really helped was that I'm a little bit. What do you think about this background? Do I need to change it? No, if I were to change it, I would have to do it on the spot. But do you think it's too busy, or do you like it?
No, I think it's okay.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, so oh, I have
But some of the words are missing.
yeah. So
Well, it's okay. I think the ones that are there are explicit enough.
yeah,
Share, share some support. You are not alone.
hugs.
Lady Lexi, legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Lady Lexi's legacy, inclusion. You're
You are,
worthy.
yeah. Those are important themes. Themes.
Yeah,
So
they are. And you've been really busy doing a lot of things. Congratulations.
thank you so much. Well, you're a poor part of Movement Makers now too, and I want to know what Movement Makers is. Anna, this is not about your English being poor. Movement Makers is something from Evan Carmichael, and Evan Carmichael is the YouTube expert, and he teaches us how to improve ourselves and get seen on YouTube and what to do and all the stuff when it comes to marketing and stage music.
Anna is from Spain.
She's Brazilian. She's
Oh,
Brazilian.
she's Brazilian.
Mm,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't know how to speak Portuguese,
Well, I think
but
she'll do.
what can I say? Obrigada.
¿Cómo está? But
So
yeah,
no, it's good that you've been doing a lot of things, and I really celebrate you for that. And particularly with all the people with whom you've been doing lives. I've seen some. I've not been able to watch all of them, but I know you've been very busy, and I'm really happy, and
thank you.
I celebrate you every time.
Oh, that's so sweet.
Even if when I really send my love to Joe, she really needs a lot of support, and
Yeah, she
thank
does.
God you're keeping up for you too, and that's really helpful.
Yeah, the show today and actually last week's show were basically um, really putting her in the middle of everything, as in she was supposed to. It was more like her story. So I've got my story too when it comes to One Chicago. But this one about Nadia and what happened to her really got to her because she had experienced the same thing, that her sister got killed basically. And I'm trying to look at it from a different angle. Like, okay, so we are watching it, but how can it help us? And I've noticed that it really can help us heal. You know, the whole watching, whether it's the Chicago Fire or Chicago PD or Chicago Med or whatever series it is. If they show it in a very good way, and then you can pick up on it. You can see how the trauma came into existence. So it's not like an episode, someone's getting killed or shot or whatever it is, or but you
No,
can.
with TV programs, like with radio programs, or like with any programs online, it depends on what you want out of it. Some people just use it for entertainment. Some people really use it to learn,
Mhm.
and there have been stories about people who have saved lives just because of things that they saw on TV. So I
Yeah.
think you can learn a lot and use it in real life. It's not like some fiction, but it's related. It's fiction, but it's related to life, day-to-day life. So
Yes.
I think there are some of the things that you can really apply them in normal life and help yourself or help people.
Yeah. Yeah. I totally agree. So one of the things I pointed out was the moment that someone is gone, the reminders and the flashbacks we get. You know, that first thing, how do we do it? How do we deal with it? Do we throw away all the stuff? Do we say I don't want to see it? um, I don't know how that is for you, but
It's sometimes you think that when someone goes away, it's something that we know that will happen,
mhm,
but we can never be really prepared because we know it's there. It lives with us every day, and as mysterious as it is, because we don't know when.
mhm,
So when it happens, it's normal to really break down at that moment, at the first moment. You really break down, and that's a normal human reaction. No
yeah,
matter how strong you are or how prepared, even when you have somebody at IUC who you're expecting, maybe, and the person finally goes, it's not really easy because we always keep that hope.
yes,
And once the person has gone, we even still keep hoping. We hope this is just like a dream, that when you wake up it will not be true.
yeah,
So it's normal that we should crash and break down from the beginning.
yeah. That's so true. Well, actually, you have witnessed when my mom passed away, what it was like. Um, yeah, because I was weekly live on the Inside Readers group back then.
No, definitely. Because even like I told you, I lost two brothers. So, because when somebody is telling you they lost someone from distance, you don't really know what it is until when it happens to you. Then when the person next time when somebody says, I am bereaved, you understand fully how the person is feeling.
Yeah.
And it's not really easy. Some and people have different ways of expressing it. Some people really just break down. Some people go and listen to music. Some people just want to stay quiet on in the one side without people talking to them, or without talking too much, and just internalize it. And really, it really hurts. But somehow, I don't know. As a Christian, I would say faith heals, or you
Hmm.
are healed. God has a way of healing. As time goes on, the memory becomes, it starts fading bit by bit and bit by bit. And but you must have to make a conscious effort.
Yeah.
If you don't make a conscious effort to remember just the good times you had with the person, and how it's really going to break you so much, so you have to make a conscious effort to brave it. It's
Yeah.
never easy.
Yeah. I
It's
love
not easy. Yeah.
how you say it, and that's true. And so when you see those memories and you suddenly get reminded, it's like, oh. But yes, there are moments that there were things I didn't want to think about, and there were things I wanted to embrace. And it's like, were you on Sen's show that moment that I talked what happened with my dad?
Yes, I was there. I
Yeah, you
was there.
were there, right?
That's the last show I attended. Last week I didn't attend his show. I wasn't even
No,
in Insiders.
yeah,
I
I know.
was there, but
Um,
you know something? It's normal, and it's because when you are used to somebody, it's your father, you've been together, you've lived so many years together. There is no way when you remember you will not shed a tear. But at times, this the tears that you have now is not like the pain you had from the beginning. It's more nostalgia, or you really miss him.
well, actually, it was the emotions I felt when he had to make that decision whether he was going to live or not because he had those minutes. So for those who are wondering what I'm talking about, and first of all, and she's from Cameroon. She wanted to know where you are.
Oh yeah, I'm from
Um,
Cameroon in Central Africa.
yeah, but so Zen on his show, he was talking about whether men or not are allowed to cry, and so I was thinking back about my dad, decades ago, and I was like, hmm, no, I've never seen him cry. And then I remember literally being next to him on that stretcher in the hospital. You know, um, I only told like a fraction in that show from basically what had happened. But my mom called me and I'd seen him in the afternoon. And my mom, tiny little woman, and there my father, big guy, and he was holding her for support because you could see it wasn't going too well with him. And I had heard the stories, but I hadn't connected the dots just yet. And I was like, things are not going good. This could be the end of him this weekend. But I didn't know how bad it was until I saw him and I saw his hands shaking and he couldn't hold the bowl of fruit. And that was when I was really like, oh my God, this is not good. And then, so I headed back to this place actually, and I was thinking about it and I was like, oh my God, his kidneys are failing. And that's why he also, why he can't eat and he wants to drink all the time and why he's singing songs in the middle of the night. Because, your brain can't function fully anymore when you are missing certain nutrients, and basically you're poisoning yourself when your kidneys can't get rid of all
But he
oil.
was really brave, to really at that stage still sing and still recognize that the daughter was there and recognize you all. I think that's,
Well,
and it's
he's
also,
he was singing in the middle of the night, and my mom didn't understand it. So she told me about this, And then when I went back to this place, I was like, there's something wrong with his kidneys. We need to talk about this. That was what I was thinking. And before I could even protest it, I got a call from my mom that my dad was on the floor, him being 6'6", 2 meters. Three policemen came over to the house, picked him back up. So I found him lying on the bed. And, well, basically, I and for the faint of heart, don't listen. But I had to pull blood clots out of his mouth, and that was,
Don't worry. Sometimes it's
yeah,
good it's good that you were there in the first place,
yeah,
and
because,
sometimes it's also good to talk about it.
yeah,
But
and then I was
you
looking at him, and his mouth was covered in blood and all that stuff, and he tried to get it out himself, and he couldn't. So basically, I called the doctors, made sure that they came, medics came. I told them, like, okay, you need to look at the scan. I think there's a tumor there. I was right. I said, I think his kidneys aren't functioning anymore. I was right about it too. And okay, so then he had 5 minutes to decide whether he would have a bypass for his kidneys. Um, and then I said, oh, no, you're not going to decide that quickly because he has a heart problem too. We need to look at the whole picture. So, and that's when I supported him on the stretcher. So he could sit upright. And that's when he had made that decision on his own. So I could travel. So he wouldn't
well,
be.
but he could still make a decision.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah. He was fully alert and awake. And that's
okay.
tried to console me and wipe the tear away from my face. And that's when I was talking about it to
That's
them.
a beautiful legacy he left for you.
Yeah, it is. And the fact that he he wanted me to be able to travel. That was, of course, that was amazing. So we were there when my dad passed away. So those
You had
were
already gone to Australia before then, or was after?
twice. Yeah, twice.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
and I'll probably go back there again. It's a
definitely.
beautiful um, so anyway, but going back to what you said, um, guilt is, of course, one of the things that a lot of us experience, and that's what I was talking about. Besides the flashbacks and the memories, everything, there's, of course, the guilt. If people didn't see it coming, and I did see it coming with my mom, and of course with my dad too. And I have this motto, like, live the last day. Every day is your last day, and tell people that you appreciate them and love them, and be there for them. Um, but in the series, you actually see that um, uh, Erin, who was rescued by, so the detective Erin, young girl, somewhere in her 20s, when she was 15, she was saved by Sergeant Hank Floyd, who is now her boss, but he had her in her house for a while, and it was actually his wife who had died, who had brought her in the house. And so she wants to do the same thing for this Nadia. And Nadia starts out being addicted, and then she goes to rehab, fails, goes back to rehab, and she really wants to make a thing of her life and become a police officer too. So she's passed her exams, and she's going to go and do the training, and then she gets killed on the show. So that's where the guilt comes in from the Aaron. And
Okay.
so and then the other thing, which we basically haven't talked about, is, so how do the people in your surrounding deal with it? So of course there's a difference. I mean, my parents died of old age, but in this show you can actually, and that's not that uncommon after trauma, you can see that she starts to get back to her old way. She starts drinking again, partying again, and that's because biological mom is alive, as still behind the bar, she's scheming, so she sees. of sorry to break.
Yeah, sometimes we are guilty because we think that we could have done something to stop it, or we could have that, and we think that we didn't do enough.
Yeah,
But there is we can't do more than we can do, because there are things within our sphere of influence, and there are things that we cannot do,
that's true. But the question,
especially,
yeah,
yeah,
especially,
especially when it comes to death.
yeah. The
When
question
it's
is, do we know how to deal with it?
they think that's what we were saying. Like, sometimes at the beginning, there's that shock,
Mhm.
but later you start feeling guilty that maybe I didn't do enough, and that's why, if for some little reason you could have helped and you didn't, you have to find a way to forgive yourself. If you don't forgive yourself, you're going to, like you said, she went back to her old habits
Yeah,
that were going to be destructive.
yeah.
So you have to find a way to forgive yourself
And here's the
and
thing.
make peace with the person who has died by
Yeah,
talking to the person. You really, like, somebody told us that in such settings,
hmm,
you have to bring a chair, you sit here, and you tell the person, okay, I know you're sitting in this other chair, and let's talk. And
yeah,
you do the talking as if the person
yeah,
was there, and that's some form of how you can liberate your guilt. But you have to find a way to forgive yourself.
yeah. It's about forgiving yourself, being able to face actually what has happened. And of course, in this case, we're talking about someone who has died, but it can also be about someone who has abandoned you or other things which has happened. And because of that, families are no longer together. But yeah, when there's trauma involved, when there's pain involved, emotional pain, what are the people in your immediate surroundings doing? Are they out? Do they see, hey, you're starting to drink? Uh, do they out? All that stuff. And that's what I loved about it in this series. In this series, you see the biological mom. He helps her get back to drinking and using drugs. And then there's the other one, and he literally gets lost. I with me, and you're staying at my place, and you do drugs every day until I know you're clean, and you can do
No,
all.
what I can say about, if the trauma is caused by other, when trauma because of death is
Yeah,
something above our circle of influence. But trauma because someone left you, or you lost something which is a material thing that you can buy again, it's I think it's still the same process.
yeah,
If you have your if you have a you lose someone in a relationship,
yeah, yeah,
forgive yourself for getting in that kind of relationship in the first place, because if the relationship no longer serves you, there's no use staying there.
yeah. But what if you know you have to let go, but you're not really capable of letting go? So maybe on a physical level you left, but on a mental level you still haven't.
But it's
And
a
then,
work that you have to do. You have to do it. Nobody is
yeah,
coming inside your head to remove it. You have to do it. You have
yeah,
to do the work. You have to
yeah,
find things that empower you and concentrate that energy on. You
yeah,
can't live inside your subconscious,
yeah,
because you are destroying yourself and you getting worse.
yeah. And
So
I've
it's
seen
not
another.
easy. It's not really easy. It's easier said than done, but you have to make that conscious decision, and you have to take that action.
Yeah.
As like I used to say that we have to always treat our bodies like a project cycle,
Hmm.
constantly evaluating, adjusting, and readjusting. it's it's really not easy. I can say it now because I've lived for a long time and I have learned so many things. When you are much younger, it's really not easy. But when you are older, I think you really just it's well, like they say in French, you just soak yourself in water. There's no either you are soaked or you are not soaked.
Yeah.
So when you are older, either you stand up to it and remove it from your head, or stay there and let it kill you.
Yeah. And that's when it comes to surroundings and the sport that you're getting or not.
And
So,
that's why it's you that has to, because people don't know what you're going through until you tell them.
yes,
You
exactly. Be about honesty and being open and being willing to tell and share what's going on in your mind and not expecting people to miraculously know what
no,
you're
people
talking
cannot
about.
know. And nowadays it's even much easier because at first you would think that you have to find somebody face to face. You have all the communities online, communities with specialized communities. You can find any one of them. Sometimes it's easier, like we say, to talk to strangers than the people we know.
Hmm.
Strangers in the beginning, and then later when you grow the relationship, you become acquaintances and you become more comfortable talking with the person. But sometimes you not sometimes when you have a problem, if you don't express it, if you don't ask for help, it's going to cost you more. I know because I have experienced it, and I also say I now I can easily do it because I have gone through it and I see that it doesn't pay.
Yeah.
It's easier for you to just tell the people because at the end of the day they will still know anyways. So the earlier you tell them and free yourself, the better.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Because when you don't want to deal with it, and that's of course what we see on the show, and what I also know from a lot of people in daily life, is that at some point they start to numb themselves. You know, they start to game, or they start to drink, or do drugs, or whatever it is, and it's easily to create an addiction because of it. And it's not until other people say, okay, snap out of it, we're going to make sure that you're going to get to rehab, that we actually start to like, oh, hang on, I can change this. But it's so difficult, especially when you are starting to become an addict and you start to push it away. And that's basically a conversation I have daily, sometimes weekly, with one of my clients, that he basically says, can't afford to open up Pandora's box. And that's a problem because Pandora's box wait until you,
And yeah, no, that's true.
yes,
That's why I say sometimes it's easier when you're older. When you're younger, it's a little more difficult and complicated. But with the online facilities that we have, because in communities, I think we have facilities in different communities. You just need to look around, you will find help.
yeah. But when with finding help, you of course have to open up and you have to share your story and you have to be willing to feel that pain and feel that grief. And if you're not willing to do it, that's going to be a huge problem. And that's why when I was thinking about the show, I was like, yeah, this is very good example what we see here, because we see that she basically gets, pulled into the life of drinking, partying, dancing, and not thinking about anything, no more responsibilities. And
And which
even
is not helping her.
which is of course not helping her until she gets pulled out of that life and basically gets back stuck in her old room.
She is even lucky that she had the opportunity to be pulled out. Some people don't have that opportunity
Yeah.
and
So
they just go like that.
yeah, well that's it. And when I talk to people who say, I'm good the way it is, if I go home now, and today I was like, go home, go home where? And then what he basically meant is, if I go back as into heaven, then
Yeah.
I'm done with. And I was like, yeah, this is not good. We need to do it. So I was like, okay. So when you go downhill, I said, what is it you are going to do? So that's what we talked about. So I said to him, yeah, well, you might want to write things down. And when you feel that pain and that hurt, try to, and I like visualizations and meditations. So I imagine that there's around the heart area, there's this little door that you can open. And then when you open it, there's this light in there. And you can take it out and it gets brighter and brighter like this lantern. And then you can hold it in your hand like this ball of light. And then it becomes bigger and bigger and bigger. And you can actually feel it like totally in your body, and you can actually feel your heartbeat if you just imagine the bright light warming you up. Then you can start feeling like your hands and your foot and your feet touch the ground. And then you make it wider and you surround yourself with it, and then you make it as big as your room and then your house.
Well, if that works for you, fine. I don't do meditations, but I do music. I listen to a lot of music, and it really does what you are describing.
Yeah.
Because I'm lucky to be able to understand music in many languages.
Hmm.
And so, like I say, when you are hurting, you listen to the lyrics.
Yeah, exactly. And then
But
you make.
not if not, you just entertain yourself with the rhythm.
Yeah.
So when I'm hurting, music does a lot for me.
Yeah, I agree. But
I
that in.
really follow the lyrics
Yeah,
and I get the therapy.
yeah. I remember the moments that I sat in the car and I was listening to a band called Cinderella, and the singer would be singing, and literally the tears would be streaming down my face, and I would be singing out loud.
Exactly.
But
Exactly.
I actually use this meditation of light because what I want to say was, when people are angry at other people and they really want to almost like attack them, you can actually use that what I call white light, which basically is love for yourself, and which you can also use for others, and just make it into a ball and throw it to someone. And then when you start doing it, it's a different feeling. So it's not hatred that you send back to someone. It's basically love, and not so much because you love the other one, but because you want to let go of that feeling of um, grief, hatred, remorse, whatever it is. And even when people are no longer around, and you talked about that with the chairs, and basically talking to the people, that those are things which really help when you okay, Mary's camera is gone, but she's probably still there.
No,
But
I'm here. I'm here.
yeah, I know it works.
I
um,
have so many things to deal with.
but it's um, you know um, when you start talking to someone, whether that person is alive or is no longer alive. So, oh, hang on. Um, yeah. Oh, okay. Um, it's a way of healing, and that's why it's so important to have other people who can help you um, deal with the grief and the loss. And that's why I love those theories, because it really helped me, put things in perspective again. And it's also a good way to show other people, like, okay, this is the way grief works, and this is the way trauma works. Uh, it may not help you process trauma fully, but it can help you, give you a start. It's like, oh my God, I didn't want to see this. I've been through this, but then when you see it, it's actually like, yeah,
And sometimes they also say that sometimes when you watch such programs, it helps you in the sense that you see somebody's problem that is way bigger than what you're going through, and you say, wow, if that person can get out of that, then I can sure get out of where I am.
Oh
So
yeah.
it can boost you because you say, oh, it's possible. And
Yeah.
so I need to put in that effort and do it.
Yeah.
But it's a work that you have to do. It's it goes inside the self-care that we're talking about, because sometimes we care about other people. We don't take time to care about our own or listen to our bodies.
Yeah, that's true. And we
Yeah.
just push it away and we push it away instead of listening what we need and what our body is telling us. So our body can tell us like, okay, we need to lay down, we need to rest, we need to cry, whatever it is. Um,
Exactly. And like when they even the I don't know whether to call it a men don't cry issue. It depends on what are they crying for.
mm,
If a man were to cry because they lost or somebody died, that would be very normal.
mhm.
Maybe if they say men don't cry, you cry over some little things, trivial things. I don't know what to call trivial, but
Yeah.
little things.
Mm,
And that's when they will say, no, you show yourself like a man. But if you're crying because you lost somebody, I think it's human.
yeah.
And man or woman, we all feel loss.
Yeah.
So it's not because I am a man that if somebody dies, I will not feel the pain. So it depends on why you're crying.
Yeah.
If you're crying for something really important, it's
Mhm.
okay.
Well, I think it's okay for your man or woman to cry, but there are times, it's the difference between okay, time to grieve, and at some point you need to say, okay, now I need to stop crying for a moment and focus on the normal things. And then, of course, grief doesn't end. It doesn't end in one day. It doesn't end in 1 year. Even it doesn't end in a decade. There always will be a moment that you might experience some grief, and that's it. Okay to talk about it and let it go. But there's something between being a victim as a result of it and being the one who says, okay, I'm not going to be the victim and I'm going to do something about it. And that's the whole difference, I think, between are you going to let guilt consume you and you're just pushing it away? You're not going to understand why people do certain things. Or are you going to say, okay, yeah, I'm feeling the guilt and I'm dealing with it, I couldn't help this. And uh, yeah, next time better, you
You
know.
know, let me tell you a little about Cameroon. Like
Mm,
in some parts of Africa, talking about grieving, especially for women who have lost their husbands. When you are a widow girl, you don't want to deal with it because most of the time, because of our culture and our traditions, most of the time when somebody dies, they say they attribute it to it's never natural. It's the wife that has killed him. It's the mother that has killed him or something. And mostly women suffer a lot from that,
really?
especially if the guy had property or if he had a lot of money. So and then when your husband dies, in some places is you have to mourn for 6 months. 6 months, it means you don't uh, you either you wear black or white depending on what you want to,
Hmm.
but you don't wear colorful clothes. You have to wear mourning clothes. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
either black or white.
yeah,
And then
yeah.
in some families it's 6 months, and then it's I mean when it's your spouse that dies,
Hmm.
but probably mostly the woman, because if she's the one who dies, I don't think the man has all the time to. But most of the time, when it's the man who dies, the woman has to mourn for 6 months, or in some families, it's 1 year, which means after that 6 months, they come to a family ceremony and they say you are removing your sackcloth, you're removing your morning cloth. So the family, they give you a bath, and then they give you new clothes to wear, and they say you can now go out.
Mm-hmm.
But there are certain traditional practices that really, they really, they are killing the wife, the woman alive. Because if her husband had money, he has
Mm-hmm.
brothers or sisters, they will want to come in and collect his property, and they will tell you, you you came to this house with nothing. Notwithstanding, if you have children, there are cases where they have sent out the woman and her children away, and so nobody cares. Some families goes to that extreme.
Yeah,
So the
that's
trauma now is not even only because the guy died, but there's additional trauma from the family
yeah, yeah,
accusing her that she killed him, or taking all the property and letting her deal with the children. If you don't have a source of income, they really don't care.
yeah.
So it depends now on families. Luckily, this kind of extreme tradition is gradually changing with modernity,
Mm-hmm.
but I can assure you that there's still some little part of it that exists.
Oh
So the
yeah,
mourning, the mourning is 6 months or 1 year, but the trauma is either light or more, depending on the kind of family.
yeah,
Some families will really come and help you to mourn their brother, and to really tell you, no, don't be worried, it's okay, we are going to help you with your kids, we're going to support you and stuff. In that case, the trauma, you easily go out of it.
mm-hmm.
But if it's one that they come and harass you,
Yeah, that's true.
it
And you know,
remains with you for a
oh,
long time.
also what you say about if you're left with money or not. I mean, say you have a family and your husband was the one who was working and is no longer around. Um, yeah, try to provide for yourself. I mean, it's not like you're going to get his salary for. I mean, he's not alive anymore. He's not working anymore, and I mean, life insurance only goes a certain way.
Yeah,
Uh,
they give a pension, a little amount of pension, but
yeah,
when
pension related age, and
in
when
a
you're
poverty play situation, people can fight for anything.
yeah, but it's when you don't have any income left because there's no insurance, everyone is still too young to collect any pension. Then instead of being able to mourn, you need all of a sudden to change everything. Maybe your surroundings get to live in a different house. Maybe you still have children, take them out of their environment. So, like you said, with the people who have to mourn like for 6 months to a year and then maybe have nothing left because the family came in and said, okay, that's for us. Um, what if you don't have a backup system and you're left on your own? That's kind of hard too.
That's hard, and that's why I say the trauma. It depends on the kind of family where you're married in. The
Yeah,
trauma can last you a lifetime, as it can last you a few months,
yeah, yeah.
because of the environment and the people who are around you.
Yeah, and exactly what are the people telling you? And I, fortunately, and I didn't know this was going to be blessing in disguise. But it took up till a year before my mom's house was sold. Um, Sometimes I think it was my parents' house, not so necessarily my mom's house, but because she lived there in the last 9 years, of course, or decades, it was more like her house. Um, but because of it, my brother and I, we talked a lot, and we had to decide certain things. What are we going to do? What are we not going to do? And it did bring us a lot closer. We used to be close, and then of course he got his own family, and but yeah, this did help, and I do appreciate, us having, you know, formed a unity. So actually, it was because my mom fell ill at some point. That I said, I need your help. I can't do this alone. I need your help because this is driving me nuts. I've got my clients I will have to take care of. If I don't take care of them, they will drive themselves nuts and commit suicide. So I need help. Can't do this on my own. And
Yeah,
fortunately, he started helping. Um, so yeah, I'm really grateful. But I was also, and that was the not so pretty side. And of course, I knew this from a decade ago. My sister and I, we don't match when it comes to when our parents, you know, are in the hospital or anything. We both want to do certain things, like two captains on a ship, and I knew that because of what happened previously with my dad. So that made it a little bit easier to deal with when my mom passed away. But then all the anger came flooding out. And it
no,
was all
with you, like in Europe, like in North America,
mm,
family is father, mother, and children.
yeah,
But in Africa, family is all the uncles, the aunties, the cousins, and
yeah,
so you can imagine. My
yeah,
my my father had my father's family is not very big. He had three brothers, no, two brothers and two sisters. And then my mother's family, she had eight. There are eight of them. Then you can imagine their own children and their own and all of that. So when they say family, girl, it's a whole and it's you see people it's sometimes you really think that no, this family is it's really cooperating. Wait until something happens, then you will know that oh, everybody was calculating something, one thing or the other. So it's like
did you just see what Anna posted there? She said her grandma had 18 children. Wow. My grandmother had six. Anna says her grandmother had 18 children.
exactly. So I don't understand what I'm saying. Family is ad extenso. You
Yeah, and
cannot
she
imagine.
died very young. Of course,
Yeah.
days because a lot of children died young, and there was no such thing as anti-conception, birth control. Sorry, um, that meant and my mom used to say like, and she could give these examples. Like I don't know if it was her parents or my dad's parents, but it was like, oh, you want to have sex? That's good. That's going to cost you a dress because I'm going to get pregnant. And then there's another toddler. It's funny when you hear those stories, but it's actually sad that back then they didn't have the choice. But here's the thing, and I love what you're saying. So there are two ways to look upon family. Like, okay, you've got your own family, husband, wife, or at least partners, children, and then, of course, their children. And then there's the one where you are a sibling of, and you are all one big family. And then, of course, there's a third variation. That's what I'm part of nowadays. That's my friends have children, and I'm their auntie. So, which is pretty cool. So it's nice to be an auntie for more than just real nephews and nieces. So there are three more. Yeah, there are three more. But anyway, um, so one of the people I was talking to, he said, I don't understand why certain people, especially from different cultures, want to live with their siblings or close to their siblings or visit their mom and dad like every time when we're on holiday and no longer see their spouses anymore. And I'm like, Well, if you're used to growing up with three generations in one house, that's not, that's not.
The thing is, all the systems, they have advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah,
So sometimes you really see people who are really, really lonely. They are really alone and they are sad. And then
yeah,
sometimes you see people who are so many, and but I think it depends on how you can manage your way through.
yeah.
I don't have children, but I can assure you that I have two younger brothers. One has 8 children, the other one has 6 children. This one he has 4 children. The first one has 5 children, and then my
Hmm.
elder sister has 3 children, and most of those children also have started having their own children. So
Yeah.
I am auntie to a long list of people,
Yeah.
and but it's some of those moments, like the time that I've spent here, because most of the time I stay alone on my own. I've learned a lot of things. I've learned to be patient. I've learned to
That's it. That's it.
and stuff. So they have advantages and disadvantages. But the thing is, I think for us it's more because of, I don't know if to say because of the poverty, because in families where people are relatively rich or richer than the others, you don't have a lot of all of this kind of
Yeah.
thing. Because most people, when they have the money, they know how to manage it and they know how to settle their property and finances while they are still alive.
Yeah.
So
That's
it's mostly when people don't have money, and then when they just fight for anything.
Yeah, it's and then again we get back to culture. So in a number of countries they need the children in order to make money, and of course having children always costs money too. So it's like what's but then they need them also to provide for them when they get older, and that's one of the things that my mom used to say, like, hey, now I'm the one who needs the help, and where is everyone? And of course I try to get them.
No, curiously, I'll tell you something curiously.
Yeah,
The people who, like, from my village,
yeah,
people have everybody have their farm. They grow most of what they eat.
yeah.
So they really don't, having children, a lot of children is no issue bringing them up. The
Okay.
issue comes with healthcare
Yes, that's
or education, and most of the people, you will even be surprised to hear that most of the people who you think are the poor ones in Cameroon are the ones who send their children to boarding schools that are extremely expensive. They
yeah,
do everything to educate their children.
yeah,
So it's food wise. If you it's only because of food you can have 50 children in Cameroon, because Cameroon has a lot of food. We have the Atlantic Ocean, we have the equatorial green forest, we have the mountain. There's a place in Cameroon where it rains throughout the year. You can grow, everybody grows their own crops.
nice, nice.
So you can't say people will die of hunger. No.
So
But the
that
thing is,
means that you don't. I mean, education is good, but the question is, do you need to go and travel the world and see things, or is it okay to be with your own family and your own friends, and you just basically have a good, nice life and all that stuff? By the way, Anna says that her family is very big too, with cousins, aunts, and uncles. And of course, I grew up in the Netherlands, and it was normal to have two kids. If you had three kids, I was part of three kids. That was abnormal, you know?
familia numerosa.
It was like, no, 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 no. So I was the youngest one, and my mom was forbidden to have another one after me. So and so at first she couldn't get any children, so that was frowned upon. And then I came, and that was frowned upon. So that's kind of funny. But anyway, you know, um, you know, I don't have any children, so I'm one of those people who basically is now on my own, and that's weird because then I want to reach out to my siblings, with birthday parties and all that stuff, but I can't do that. For some I can, but most of the time I can't. So I've learned to actually do my own thing, and people always say we have to see one another face to face and meet in real life, and I've come to embrace what we are doing right now as well because we are having a good conversation. So
I'm
my
laughing.
family is a lot bigger than just my actual siblings.
The thing is, even in those big families where they have hundreds of people, at night you go to bed alone.
Yeah.
It's a paradox.
Yep.
There are so many. Even if you are sharing a bed with somebody, you on your own side of the bed, the person is on their
Hmm.
own side of the bed.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you are on your own. So
Yes.
don't worry, girl, you're not missing anything.
Oh.
So I told you I used to be like that. Most of my life is like that. My adult life. So it's just these 2.5 years that I've been here, and it's a new way for me. At first, I couldn't really stand the noise, but I'm used to now.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at being on my own most of the time, and when I want to go out and see people, I talk very easily to other people, so I always have conversation with people. So so I don't really feel alone. I don't, but it's you know
No,
I,
especially in today's world of with internet, there are many communities online.
yeah.
You can just find one.
So Anna says it was a pleasure being with you. I have to go. See you soon. So
Oh, Anna, it's a real
yeah.
pleasure. It's a real pleasure. You have yourself a beautiful time of the
Yeah.
day. I don't
So
know what time of the day it is.
yeah. So in Brazil, it's aren't they on the same time as you are in Brazil?
Oh,
Could
really? It's 6:30. It's 6:30 here now. 6:30 p.m.
yeah. Well, maybe she's listening to it and she can let us know which time it is.
Okay.
I don't know, or maybe she's gone.
No, when we talk
Uh, it's
about
it's true what you say, and you can have a family and then still feel alone, and that's also when we talk about loss and trauma and grieving, letting go of um, loved ones or people you thought were close to you, and then figure out they're not. That's
yep.
really like that's really hard.
No,
So
it's really hard.
yeah,
I've been betrayed by a very close friends
yeah,
that I really trusted them, and I was betrayed. And but you see, at the end of the day, you take your responsibility for your life, and you decide to be a happy person
yes, I
because
agree.
they don't owe you anything. At the end of the day, that's when I started working on myself. I accepted that they didn't owe me anything. I trusted them. They didn't reciprocate the trust, but that's how you don't expect trust from people who cannot be trusted. So
Yeah,
if they no longer serve you, you leave them where they are and you keep going. The journey is your own,
yeah,
and
yeah.
nobody can do it for you. So you decide what you want it to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And it took me a long time to realize that, but I'm glad that I did.
yeah, that's good. And it's in the end, it's always our responsibility what we do with our life and not.
Yep.
But you say it's also what we know. I mean, I've had decades of introspection, reflection, training, all that stuff because of the line of work I'm in, and it makes it a lot easier to look at things.
Yeah, very,
When
very
you haven't,
it's very helpful.
Yeah, but when you haven't, and the first time you get confronted with some sort of trauma or grief or whatever it is, yeah, that's a whole different ball game. Because then you don't know what to do, and then when there's no one around to support you, that's that's pretty painful. So I'm actually glad that throughout my life I already had these episodes of having to learn to deal with certain things.
I
And
am I'm happy. I'm lucky to have a very close family. We are really close, and it's just me who decided that I should be a superwoman. I can do it by myself and stuff. But
yeah.
but I have my family. They're really supportive. We are very close.
Hmm.
I don't know how I kept it from them for so long, but
Yeah, there's both, and then there's what do you tell them?
yeah. No, I was more. It was like I felt that I disappointed them, or that I was like the black sheep.
Yeah,
I disappointed them. This is not what, but they don't care. Really, they just want me to be me and happy.
yeah.
You
Yes,
know
I
when,
you're the one with the big smile, you always bring a big smile
and this is how
on
all of us
your
are in our family. You see, my older brother, he's always having this big smile. My
Yeah,
sister, all of us are like that, very cheerful, and we took
nice.
it really from our mom and
Yeah,
her family. Even my father too, his family, but my mom's family, they're very cheerful people, always smiling
I
and
love it.
stuff.
I
Yeah.
love.
Mhm.
So I'm going to wrap up a little bit. No, not a little bit. I'm going to wrap up. So I'm going to go back for 1 second. So this was about how Chicago PD or any other show for that matter can heal trauma, and I got and actually with you I also got into um, the flashbacks, the memories, the reminders, the guilt trip if you it was unexpected and you haven't done certain things in your life and not knowing how to deal with it because your surroundings is not helping you or you haven't been taught any of it. Having said so, please know, and that's what we talked about too. Nowadays, with the whole online thing going on, there's books you can read, there are communities you can go to. You can always comment on here and we can reach out. There are hotlines you can call. So please know that you are not on your own. But when you do and you are grieving at that moment, it can really help to binge watch some shows. I'm not going to say that it's good to keep watching television because you only have so much time in your life. And when you spend it on watching TV, of course, you can't spend it on anything else. But it can help you deal with the grief if you really look for the ones who will help you out. So,
Absolutely.
and for those who are viewing right now, I'll see you again next week, and then hopefully I will be here with Cheeky Joe.